Hi, I'm Catherine Taylor, and welcome to Let's Get Writing, the show where we find out the stories behind the stories and all about the people who write them. My guest today is an author, a stage and production manager, lighting and sound designer, multi instrumentalist, songwriter, stage performer, so many things. I'm sure you can't wait to meet her. Her first book, A Wonderful Bigness, is based on a play about her family that she performed in and co wrote. So please join me in welcoming Diana Daly to the show. Ah, there she is. Hi, Diana. How are
Hi. Great, thank you.
you? So nice to have you. You are in St. John's. I'm in Grand Falls, Windsor, Newfoundland, and Labrador, Canada. Let us know where you're watching from, anywhere in the world. We'd love to hear. So, Diana, A Wonderful Bigness. I just love that name. I have to tell you, it speaks to Newfoundland, and it's a beautiful title for a book about your family and a book that transcends size. So, I just want to throw it out to you to talk a little bit about this book and what it means to you.
Well, oh my goodness, it means a lot of things. As you know, I am
Mm,
many things, a multitude, and I come from a multitude of wonderful people and places. Um, the book is based on my great grandparents and their children. So my grandfather and great aunts and uncles, that generation,
mhm,
and they were based in St. Mary's Bay, so the Irish part of Newfoundland and Labrador. Very Irish folks, but then they moved later into St. John's in the 1950s. So I'm a classic townie. My mother was born before Confederation, so I'm a first generation Canadian. Um, I'm not Irish, but my heritage very much so is. So a wonderful bigness is a term that my great grandfather used to say to my great grandmother. So Daniel Daly married Kitty Daly, or
mhm.
Kitty Ryan, and then became Kitty Daly. But he used to always say to her, "There's a wonderful bigness about you, Kitty. There's a wonderful bigness about you." And my poppy used to say that to my sister all the time. There's a wonderful bigness about you, and it means more than your size. It means your
Mhm.
spirit, your presence. And then I guess I don't know if you want me to go further into the very pointed piece about the size.
Yeah, that's the direction we're
Yeah,
heading,
okay,
but absolutely,
okay.
because I love how you set it up. I love that they were part of the Irish loop where there was at that time when they were growing up there was folklore, there were fairies,
Mm,
there were so many magical things about that place.
yeah.
Yeah, so they were an unusual family, and your great-grandparents were remarkable
Mhm.
in how they loved their family, brought up their family, and I'm going to hand it back to you again.
Yeah. So exactly, kind of a classic Irish Catholic
Mhm.
family, who took their Catholic directive of fill the cradles very seriously. Um, so the interesting thing is that my great grandfather was the policeman of the area, big man. Uh,
Mhm.
and my grandmother also was like I guess around my size or maybe my mom's size. And out of they did have 13 children, but 12 lived, which is also very common for that time.
Mhm.
Um, so my grandfather, my pop, who I loved to bits, he was born in 1914, at the eldest, and he was just average, but grew to be a huge man. And then the next child born was my uncle Mike, and he was born with what we call dwarfism. And then the next child, my Aunt Anne, also born small. The next person, I think, if I remember correctly, is my Uncle Gordon. And anyway, out of the 12 who survived,
Mhm.
it was big, small, small, big, small, big, small, small. Like there, out of the 12, six had various forms of skeletal dysplasia. So that is, I think, the best way you can kind of make a reference for modern times is if you think of the brilliant actor Peter Dinklage. He
Mhm.
is a really good example of like what my uncles and aunts looked like. Or Warwick Davis is another person, but skeletal dysplasia comes in many different forms. Um, So we, growing up, just knew it as dwarfism. But now, after doing all this research, I know a whole bunch of things. So two of my aunties, my Aunt Rose and my Aunt Anne, I think had brittle bone disease as well. Um, just but nobody, of course, we're talking about the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So like the science behind the stuff was uh, iffy at best. But the really great thing about, I think, the kind of root of the story and what people love about it so much is that nobody was sent away. Yes, there was disability. Yes, there was difference, but there was also a ton of respect, and there was no. They're quite lucky that the family maintained its integrity and stayed together, and everybody was celebrated for what they could do rather than what they couldn't do.
Which was pretty wonderful. I think your great grandparents must have been exceptional people, because just even for me to even think about 12 kids, any of us today that would be an accomplishment,
Mhm.
to raise such large families. Of course, they were raised in a different environment, and no one was running around like crazy like we do today.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
There
Yes.
was more focused in the community and at home, and I think that's where they flourished. I love your book. I wanna go to the book a little bit. We've got the background story, but let's go to how you captured that in the book, because
Okay.
you looked at your different, aunts and great aunts and uncles,
Mhm.
and you told their little stories, how they lived their lives, what were their talents. They were incredibly interesting people who adapted to, the challenges that they had in their life, and just lived such full lives. And it just, as I read the book and the way you spoke of them, I really wished that I had the opportunity to,
Oh,
yeah, to know them and be at the house enjoying the
yeah.
music, the conversation, the devilment.
Yes. Yes.
For
Well,
anyone
that
who
I'm so
doesn't
glad to
know,
hear that.
devil skin is a Newfoundland word, only we would say it, I mean, if you were saying it in the outport, you divil skin,
Mhm.
right? I
Yep.
hadn't heard for a long time, but yeah,
Yeah.
there's mischief,
Oh,
and
yeah. Idleness. Yeah. Yeah, and, like, come on, life is rough. You need to have a laugh. You need to be smart. You need to engage in culture. That's the thing about my family is, we engage in politics, science, culture, art,
Mhm.
religion, all those things. Like, and that I love that you pick up on that. That yes, there were 12 children, but there was also all of the friends and all of the extra kids.
Mm.
And like my mom and her sister were partly raised in there too. Like all the and of course my cousins and their cousins. Like there was just a ton of people all the time. And yeah,
And that's part of our culture. That's
yes, it
how
is.
we grow up here,
Mhm.
and you have extended family who are almost like family,
Mhm.
and that's what I remember too growing up.
Mhm.
There would be large parties.
Mhm.
Now, when we think of your aunts and uncles, their different sizes and so on, they found a way to work together
Mhm.
and to make it all work. I think I forget which one was he was Mensa. He was a
Oh
member of,
yeah, my
you
uncle
know.
Mike. Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, so while they had the physical disabilities, it didn't affect really who they were or their
Mm-mm.
in any other way. And they were, and the book was beautifully illustrated as she told the story by Bruce Alcock, a
Mhm.
Newfoundlander who
Mhm.
lives in BC. And so tell me a little bit about, we have the family, we have your idea. Well, do we really? How did you come to write the book? What prompted you to want to do it?
So, I think you'll notice in the book too, it's like, woo, there's all these thread lines. There's so many thread lines, and that
Mm.
is hard to craft. But of course, its creation also has a bunch of thread lines because that seems to be my life.
Okay.
I I'm
Yeah.
very fortunate. My friends, my dear friend Louise Moyes is a documentary dance artist. So she makes pieces where she learns people's stories and then presents them on stage with a mixture of contemporary dance, storytelling, and visual effects. And it's just gorgeous. I love it because it's really visceral and warm and very respectful. And she had done a piece about my mom called St. John's Women, in 2010. And as my mom is a representative of like that era of St. John's and, you know, what feminism was and all this stuff. And as mom and Louise were talking, a big part of mom's life is her aunts and uncles and her family. So she was telling all these different stories about, you know, how she was raised with her aunties and uncles. And Louise was really drawn to these stories. And she asked mom, can I do a docu dance on them? And at the time, mom was like, it's not the right time. They're very private people. Not the right time. But then a couple of years later, we all kind of went, okay, let's do this. So Louise, she really is the driving force behind this. She, you know, got us together with Anne Troke, who is another brilliant Newfoundland artist. You'd probably
Show
know.
these people here in the stream.
Yeah, I'm so lucky. I mean, look at
Speaker.
my friends. They're
Yeah.
juggernauts. Come on. Anne is famous for her dance and choreography. She's also an anthropologist and an osteopath, but she made a brilliant film called My Ancestors Were Rogues and Murderers, based in Twillingate. So she's a genius person too. So, and as a collective, we all made the show together. But first, I came in as a consultant. I wasn't going to be in the show at all because you see from my bio, I usually do stuff that's not
Yes.
on
Yeah.
stage, you know. But then they kind of went, it's kind of looking like you need to be in the show. And I was scared, but I took the leap because, of course, I want to do that. And I was just
Mhm.
scared to do it. But what better people to guide me through than these two? So we took a bunch of years. We did many workshops. And then we made this beautiful play called If a Place Could Be Made. I say play, but it's more a stage piece because, of course, there's music and dance and video and lino cuts. And there you go. That's
Yeah.
perfect. That's a classic example. So I play the music, Louise dances, we tell the stories, and we use audio from our family members. So as like verbatim memories. And that is the little show that could. We've taken it all up and down Labrador. We've been all over the island, even to McCallum and Galtus, New York City, the National Arts Center. That's Louise. That's a beautiful example of Louise embodying my Uncle Mike and the what it means to be a man in that era. So you can see my Uncle Tom and Uncle Gordon next to him, and there's no that's a perfect example of like the camaraderie that they had where everybody's cuddled
Mhm.
together, but also the style and the integrity and the grace of them. And yeah, that's a fantastic example of how we did not ever at any point get on our knees and pretend to be dwarves, because that is a
Right.
danger that can happen with this community. And so we had to be very, of course, very respectful. Otherwise, I always joke that my family would haunt me. They'd probably
You likely would. Of course,
big lamp
you would
dropped on
have
my
to. Yeah, you'd have to be sensitive to who they were. They had huge personalities,
head.
and
Respect is important.
yeah.
Mhm.
And I think oftentimes people shy away because they're not sure, how do I refer to this? And
Mm.
what is the correct way? And you mentioned dwarfism, but that's not a term really used today. Is it? Or
It is and it isn't. I mean, I'm not exactly an expert on all of this stuff, but
Mhm.
that's why I always say, and I say it in the book too, because the book is for children. The best thing to do is to ask the person how they want to be identified, because everybody is different. And somebody might say, actually, that's not a word I like to use. They might say, I'd prefer to be a person of short stature. I
Mhm.
have dwarfism, but I'm a little person, or, you know, you really got to be sensitive with people and respect them, because there's loaded, I mean, I don't get into the darkness of what can happen with people in the disability community with but there were dark things that were happening to folks at that time, and well, and still to this day, and a lot of discrimination. So for me, I just feel like best thing to do, ask the person and then go with it. That's
And I love that you mentioned, we'll still go through some aspects of the show and the pictures you integrated
Mhm.
behind. Um, but I love the fact you decided to write this for the young reader, not young, but I guess it would be kind of 10 and up, is it?
Yeah, 8, I think 8 can handle it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And we'll have a few more. We'll just scan through a few more of the shots here. We have so many of them, and I want to share them.
yeah.
What's behind you? Is that Ryan's Fancy?
Yeah, that's Ryan's Fancy, who we're like, or the Sons of Aaron. Yeah, no, it's Ryan's Fancy. So Mary and Keck. So we're impersonating them there. We're out at probably Aaron's pub having a smoke with the boys. Yeah, they went to all the shows during the Irish revival. Like and we have like tons of photos, and oh my God, there's Dermot O'Reilly's in the background, and they were great friends with Ralph O'Brien, and just like they were at all the shows. That
They got
was,
around.
mm-hmm. Oh
Excellent.
yeah.
And then I think we're back. This might be where we started, I
It
think.
might be, yeah. That's the like, woohoo, Joe. That's the like when Joe would go back to St. Mary's for the summer, all the kids were like, yes, because he was the ideas guy. And he's the Divilskin that you were referring to.
The one who had that tire,
The tire of dung.
the tire.
Yes. The
Yeah.
classic tire of dung. Mm-hmm.
He didn't like the picnic that was happening, and so he sent a tire rolling down the hill full of dung.
Well, he basically sabotaged his sister's his very
Hey,
they used to get these fancy dresses together and go sit on the beach and have very fancy refined picnics. And he and the boys came up to the top of the hill and were like, "Give us a sandwich!" And they told him to shag off. And then he did, and came back with an old tire filled with fresh cow poop. And they sent it bumping down the hill, and of course sprayed.
the ladies,
Yeah.
refinery. Yeah, not their finest move, but I could see it happening, and definitely you brought out their personality
Yeah.
so much, and just the things they did, like anyone would do, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
Done.
He's like, "I got an idea. Let's do this." Remember being that mad? I'm just gonna get you.
And I see the exuberance here. I mean, it's just beautiful. And the image, I think, is that your Aunt Mary?
That's my Aunt Mary in the background. So that's during the play, we had that picture up, and you can see Uncle Joe. He's kinda sitting off to the side behind Louise there a little tiny bit.
Okay, yeah,
But,
yeah.
yeah, so, these are things that they really happen. We're not making them up, and they're, of good times out in St. Mary's and good times in St. John's too. So I grew up with these people. They raised me and my family and my cousins, and as part of our large family. So I always, as a little girl, knew about disabilities because
Mhm.
people in our family had them. I mean, most families do, but that's why the book. That's why I know how to say it to children. I think a little bit better. Um, 'Cause I remember being a child and going like, "Oh, okay, that's different," but, like, other than that, they're the same as any other person, and
It was part of your life, and it's a great message to bring forth at
Mhm,
this time when we are making such strides in inclusion. And
mhm.
sometimes, as I say, you wonder, as someone growing up, perhaps a child would be like, "Well, yeah, how do I go about this?" And then this is a wonderful book. I just want to hide that title so we can see the book
Oh,
again.
yeah, good idea.
And here we go, A
Mhm,
Wonderful Bigness.
mhm,
And I have a few pages from inside there, and we can see Bruce's artwork there and those threads. And well, okay, the church was part of this too,
mhm,
because your great grandmother was troubled.
mhm,
Um, at the time, because we know the directive was go forth and multiply,
mhm. That's right.
particularly in the Catholic Church. And so maybe just talk a little bit about that, because I'll move through these
Okay.
photographs.
So, yeah,
And
now I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore. I mean, I was raised that way, but of course I'm this generation. But I mean, I we grew up having mass on Christmas Eve in their house. Like that's how Catholic are you? That's how Catholic we were. That the priests were their friends and would come into
right.
their home and do Christmas Eve mass there. So that's how I grew up. Um, so when I think after the second or third child that was born that was small, my great grandmother went into St. John's and talked to the Archbishop to say like, why are we having these small babies? What should I do? They were wondering if they'd offended God or, essentially. Um,
Mhm.
and of course, the Archbishop said, well, what do you think God would want you to do? Which is like, thanks for that's not really helping. But anyway, she said, she came back with, I think he wants me to have a big family. So that's what they did. They just kept having kids. And he gave her special dispensation not to have more children. And that is exceptional. And it's also really hard to explain to children contemporary children, because they
Mhm.
have no idea how much power the church had over people's lives and how integral it was to absolutely every aspect of your life. So for an archbishop to give you permission not to have more children, that is unheard of, especially because we know that many people. Anyway, I got to keep it light. I got to keep it light. But we all, I think our generation understands the impact of that.
Yes.
And but then she just went, "Oh, okay. Well, I think God wants me to love all my children, and that's what I'm going to do." So they just continued having more children, and then everybody had, you contributed to the household, to the life of the home, how you could with your best talents, and if there was something you lacked, somebody else would make it up, and that um, there's no like there was no like, oh, you just sit in the corner or you sit under the stairs or you don't have to do anything. There wasn't that at all. It was everybody had skills and abilities, and
It was quite amazing because
mm,
some of them fished. They made their
yep.
own clothes.
Hmm.
They, actually, I think is it. I'm thinking now. Is it Rose or
Mm.
she kept her cigarettes tucked into?
That was
Is it?
my Aunt Anne. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I'm just seeing their personalities come through, and I'm thinking, like, okay,
Yeah.
it's we are who we are, and we're
We are who we are, and there's no reason not to be well dressed, and there's no reason not to be. I mean, that's up to you. They
yeah.
style is important for them, but
And
there's
back
no.
in the day, it was. I mean, I remember those days. You dressed up when you went to church.
Mhm,
You had an Easter bonnet every year. We always had a
mhm,
hat, and you got a new coat, and
mhm.
shoes and things. So that was, it was part of our lives, and so that's my generation. So when we go back, imagine how much more. You
And if
mean,
if you consider othering, when you go, oh, somebody's when you're just excluded from daily life, uh, it's
hmm,
important that this is, Mary and Keck made knit beautiful sweaters for their brothers, and that Uncle Mike was a tailor and cut everybody's hair and made suits for his own nephews. Like they had serious skills, and that style was really important. I,
yeah.
it was a thing, and that's a great way to not be othered.
Yeah,
Mhm,
interesting. Because your book is a celebration of family,
mm,
inclusion, and great-heartedness. You
yeah.
just feel that reading it. So such a beautiful choice. Now you are with Running the Goat,
Mhm,
books, which is Marty Parsons, and I'm just going to put that up here. I know I have it here.
yeah.
There we go. And so how did that happen? How did you, because writing a book is one thing, finding a publisher is another aspect. So how did you find Marnie, or Marnie find you?
Well, Marnie found me. Well, actually, Marnie and I've known Marnie a long time, and I always loved that she has a publishing company and makes her own books. And I love going to Torres Cove to visit the shop and the printing press. I just think I put it in the book. Her contribution to Newfoundland and Labrador culture is it's tremendous. It's tremendous. She publishes so many great people. So again, lucky me, I don't even go looking for these things. But so I took the leap and did the show. A little bit of courage there with great
Yeah.
guidance, and then Marnie saw the show and loved it, and she approached me. I'm so lucky, but she approached me to turn it into a children's book uh, based on the play. But so that's why Louise and Anne are credited everywhere, on the cover and in the acknowledgments.
Mhm.
But then base it on the play, but then to sculpt it a bit more for children. Um, and so, if Marnie hadn't have asked, I wouldn't have done it.
No.
That's the honest. And she was so kind and such a great editor and helped me. Like in the theater piece, there were things that you couldn't say. Like there was things I was just like, I just can't say this. And then Louise would dance it. She would
Mhm.
embody the thing. I just went through. Marnie did that for me when there were pieces that I was like, oh, I'm having a really hard time with this piece. Marnie would go, what if you just, boop, 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 and then
Right.
magic, parfait. Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's the reason why there's this book. I mean, yes, I wrote it, but
You
come
played
on,
your role
I want
as
to finish.
so how did family members respond to you doing this? Were they supportive?
Yes. And I
Nervous?
was so worried. I was worried everybody would be like, don't you dare, or like, because everybody's very protective of these people. We
Sure.
all adore them.
Yeah.
Um, and nobody really wants a spectacle made of your beloved family. But oh my gosh, I think my little cousin Pearl, who's 9, I think, she said to Judy, who's her grandma, she said they're reading it together as a family. And Pearl said, you know something, we have little people in our family, we have adopted people in our family, we have Black people in our family, we are very diverse. I'm just like,
Yes.
you're right, Pearl, we are. And my cousin Erin was at a book fair in the school that she works, and I'm getting these responses where she was like, don't you love when you walk into the gym at your book fair and here's a book about your family?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been wonderful. They've been so supportive, and of course they're really enjoying celebrating the family too, and being able to share those stories too, because sometimes people don't really believe you when you talk about it. They're like,
No, it's
can't possibly be.
a very remarkable
Mm.
story. And, but it's a reminder that life can be rich. Life
Yes.
is what you make of life. And I guess their faith and their joy as a family, their unit, it just brought them through that. And so all your aunties and uncles lived very, very fruitful and interesting lives
Yeah.
and supported one another. I think
Yes,
it's
they did.
it's a beautiful story and a wonderful story to share with
Thank you.
young readers. And yeah, thank you for doing that. I added a couple of photographs
Oh, great.
at the end of your book.
Yeah. There you see every.
Yeah, of the
Yeah.
family
And I
name.
think those are great pictures because you can see just how humongous my poppy was. And then, like, you can see that's little cat
Yes.
at the
Yeah.
bottom is baby and little Rose, and that's their mommy, Kitty. And I mean, it's pretty amazing, to be honest.
Yeah, and if you hadn't have told it, the story would be gone, and now it's gonna be with us because it's
Thank
in a
you.
book. Books are great, folks. Books are
It's
wonderful.
just so great.
They are. They're so wonderful, and that's what this show is all about, to share the, joy of books and reading and writing. And Diana Daly, thank you so much for being part of
Really
this journey
appreciate
with
it.
me, and for being on the show today, and Barney Parsons for the work you're doing, and Bruce Alcock for your illustrations. And folks, I did put up, you can reach out to Diana. She's Diana Rose Daly on Instagram and Facebook,
Mhm.
Diana Daly.
Yes.
So go check it all out. And thank you for joining us on Let's Get Writing. And thank you, Diana,
Thank
for
you,
being my guest
Catherine.
today.